Welcome, everybody. My name is Lube, and welcome back to what some people are calling episode 17 of Brits and Yanks Talk Trek, a podcast for Trekkies, Trekkers, and absolutely everything in between. We are brought together as a group of friends from both sides of the pond who just love Star Trek. This is a podcast where we're going to update you on everything that's been going on in the world of Star Trek, all the recent news. We're going to talk about the cultural differences between the Brits and the Yanks, and then we're going to explore a topic around Star Trek as well, what we think about a certain aspect that we pose to the panel. I would like you all to let us know that all the bits that you would like us to talk about, anything that you would like to get involved in, you can join our Discord. Link to that is in the episode description. You can throw themes and topics that you want the team to discuss on future shows. We would love to be able to hear what you want the Brits and Yanks Talk Trek team to talk about. I don't do this very often, but could you do me a favour? Well, two favours, actually. The first one is share this with a friend. Anybody that loves Trek, hopefully they will get some enjoyment out of this. Share it out. And also, please press the follow button on your podcast platform so the episodes are automatically downloaded onto your device when a new episode launches. And then while you're there, if you like the show, give us a 6 out of 5 star review. That would be amazing. You can grab yourself some exclusive merch from the Brits and Yanks Talk Trek podcast at itslube.com. That's ITSLEWB.com. You can grab some exclusive merch, and you can also become a member to get some behind the scenes recordings from the team before the show. So let's just quickly introduce who we've got with us today. Obviously, you've got myself. We've got Mr. Perfection himself. We've got Silvus. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing all right.
Marvellous. We've got the Tribble Mother herself, Minnie. How are them pesky Tribbles treating you?
The Tribbles are getting on okay. They're getting on all right. How are you?
Very, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Silvus never asks how I am, so thank you so much for actually asking how I am. That's lovely of you. We've got the king of the graphic himself. We've got Candy. How's your day been?
It's been pretty busy, but it's been a good week.
And then we've got the cat-saving jet setter himself. We've got the professor. We've got Putz. How are you?
I'm doing great. The weather here is 80 degrees and sunny.
Not rubbing it in at all, as it absolutely heaves it down here. Absolutely horrible. It's about 4 degrees in real measurements. That's 4 degrees Celsius. Absolutely freezing, which is absolutely marvellous. Okay, welcome to the podcast. Welcome, everybody. We are all here, and like I said, we're going to be talking about a few things. We are starting off with a brand new segment, and we're calling it Star Trek News.
It's time for the Star Trek News.
I quite like that. A little cheeky intro. Quite liked it. Okay, so the first new news topic that we're going to talk about. Jill Jacobson. Anybody ever heard of her?
She's passed, hasn't she?
She has passed. So Jill Jacobson has passed at age 70 after a 2-year battle with cancer. So rest in peace, Jill. Jill was actually part of 2 different series. She was in TNG. She played Vanessa, which was one of the gamblers in the TNG episode from Series 2, Episode 12, The Royal. I don't know if you remember that episode, Silvus. It was the one where they found an anomaly. They went down to a planet. They found a revolving door, and that revolving door led them into a hotel where Worf, Riker, Data got sort of stuck in there and they couldn't get out. She was one of the gamblers on that show. Do you remember that one?
I remember how didn't that end with like a astronaut like time traveled through there or something like that? Ended with like a U.S. astronaut or something like that.
Yeah, so they sort of made it. Spoilers from something from 1990.
Some people might not have watched it yet.
I don't forget constitute a spoiler. Yeah, you're correct. So they made like the this bubble, this Earth-like bubble on the planet for an astronaut that crashed there, and he actually died there, didn't they? They actually found him in one of the rooms, didn't they? They found him in an astronaut outfit and basically just bones. He was just bones, wasn't he? He just decomposed. He'd been gone that long that he'd been there. But absolutely spot on. Yeah, that was the episode. She was one of the gamblers on one of the poker tables for that, and she also played a character in Deep Space Nine, which was Series 4, Episode 26, so the final episode of Season 4. She played Arroya. The episode was called Broken Link. Arroya was one of the shopkeepers on the promenade, and just to give you a bit of background on Broken Link, obviously Link would tie you into Odo. It was the episode where Odo collapses and he struggles to maintain his form. And his only method to try and treat it, he tries to go seek out his people, go find the founders to try and basically make him better again, because they were worried that he was going to die and never be able to take solid form again. He goes off with Garrick to go and try and find his own people. Do you remember that episode, Candy? Do you remember that one where he goes to try and find it?
Deep Space Nine, I'm actually kind of like fuzzy on since it wasn't unfortunately it wasn't one of my favorite series, so I didn't follow it as closely as I did, like, say, Enterprise or TNG.
Yeah.
So I'd have to defer back to you on that one.
Puts, you'll know it, Puts. Go on, you'll know that episode, won't you?
Yeah, I remember that not too well, but I do remember the banter between Garrick and Odo as they were going to find. I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
Just brought out a lot of Garrick's character in that episode.
Oh, it really did. We saw good. I love episodes that were focused on Garrick, because obviously he was a side character, but when it was an episode purely about those two, it meant that obviously that they could go a lot deeper into his character arc, couldn't they, and do that. But yeah, Jill Jacobson has sadly passed away at age 70, having featured in 2 of our great series here on Star Trek. Second news story of the evening. This is a strange one. WWE's Becky Lynch, I didn't think it'd start here, would you? WWE's Becky Lynch has joined the cast for the new Star Trek Starfleet Academy series. We don't know what her character is. We haven't got a set release date for when the Starfleet Academy series in. And she quoted, "I'm so excited to share with all of you that I'm joining Star Trek Starfleet Academy as part of the bridge crew." So not even a deep. She's quite a main character, really. This is the most amazing experience acting alongside just a spectacular cast and crew. And I cannot wait for all of you to check it out when it comes out on Paramount Plus. As I've said, no premiere date has actually been released yet for this new series, but we have got lots and lots of people that are going to be coming into that, some recurring characters. One of the most notable recurring characters that has been confirmed to be coming to the show is Robert Picardo. Robert Picardo, who played the EMH, will be returning to the franchise to reprise his role within the new series. So I'm really looking forward to that. Love the Doctor. I thought it was outstanding. Didn't you think so? Come on, we'll come back. You'll know this one, Candy. How good was the EMH in Voyager?
Like, Robert Picardo was amazing in Voyager, and he doesn't skip a beat when they reprise the Voyager crew in Star Trek Prodigy. He, like, just the evolution that he's taken as not only an actor in the character, but the character itself being able to evolve as the series has continued on from the original airing of Voyager itself.
Absolutely, it's a superb actor. I thought he played it absolutely tremendously. I think it'd be really good to see him. And I think that when they do these new shows, I think when they do have sort of cameo appearances of the old Trek characters, of old Trek legends, such as Robert Picardo, I think it adds a bit of extra gravitas, doesn't it? It was like when we saw, like you said, when we saw Janeway appear in Prodigy. Do you know what I mean? That will have lured people in to actually go and watch it just because they knew that Kate Mulgrew was reprising her role in there. I bet people watched it purely for that and then stuck to the series. So I think it's a really candy thing for them. Candy? Because I'm talking to you. A really candid thing for them to do. Obviously, to bring new people back into it, and obviously to get old Trekkies back into it as well. So no, I think that'd be really good. Go on, shoot.
I have a question. Do you think that they will, like, computer graphic change Robert Picardo to de-age him, make him younger? Because he's a hologram, so he shouldn't age. So he should still look the same age as he did in Voyager, but obviously it's been several years. So do you think that how do you think they're going to get around that in the new show?
I think that they will go down the same route that they did with, like, Data when there was, do you remember he was in All Good Things when he just said, "Well, I wanted to dye my hair because that's what I wanted to do." Data would never have aged, would he? And I think that Robert Picardo being a hologram, he could just amend his program parameters to look like he's aged a little bit. It would be nice if they would make him look as young as he did before, but let's be realistic. Is that something that they're going to be able to do and pull off really, really well? I mean, what do you think you'd like them to do?
You know, I'm of two minds here. I think that integrity wise, I think it would be nice to keep him the same age, but I think that they could use it as, that he's exploring. He's like, my program's getting older, so I'm gonna try to get older and whatnot. So I don't know. I'm really excited to see how they do it.
Agreed. I think it will be really good. But I can't wait to see him in that, and I'm looking forward to that one coming out. So I do want to go on, Minnie.
It would be cool if when he's talking to the new recruits, he's aged, so he comes across with the gravitas. He feels he has to be older to be a teacher, but when he's talking to any cast members that pop in from the original Voyager days or the original series types from the 90s, then they take him back to his younger self.
That would be so cool. That would be so cool. So we sort of have like two facades of him when he's
Mhm.
teaching and one when he's actually communicating with crew and officers and stuff like that. No, I think that'd be really good. And for anybody that's not obviously looked into Starfleet Academy and not read much about it, I'm going to read you the official log line. So like the official strap line of how Paramount have actually said that Starfleet Academy is going to work. This is going to follow the adventures of a new class of Starfleet cadets as they come of age in one of the most legendary places in the galaxy. The series will introduce viewers to this young group of cadets as they come together to pursue a common dream of hope and optimism under the watchful and demanding eye of their instructors. They will discover what it takes to become Starfleet officers as they navigate blossoming friendships, explosive rivalries, first loves, and a new enemy that threatens both Academy and the Federation itself. Now, I read that, and Candy, how excited are you for Starfleet Academy?
I just hope it's not some variation of the Borg.
Oh, God, yeah. Borg 3.0.
Right.
It can't be
Or
that.
it's like, yeah, like some evolution of the Borg. Like, just like let it be something new. Like quit rehashing the Borg, please.
I totally agree. I think Star Trek's ready for a new villain on the level of the Borg that has the same sort of, oh, yes, the Borg are in this episode type feel to it. Because the Borg now, as it's come on and on and on, we're sort of like, oh, it's the Borg again. We're ready for something new, aren't we, in terms of an enemy? We're ready for something new and something good. I think that would be awesome. Okay, so go on, Candy.
No, I was agreeing with you. Like it would be, well, hope it's not something to do with the Borg, and I'm split fenced on whether I would want it to be something like I would really want them to stay away from another temporal type, like anomaly type thing where they're going into multiverses or something like that. Like while it's been like kind of fun to watch in the final season here of Lower Decks,
Mhm.
I just like time travel seems to be
Picard was very
everybody's.
time travel-y, want it?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be everybody's kind of go-to kind of cookie cutter thing right now. So I just hope it's not time travel.
I agree. I totally agree. I hope that would be good. And like I say, we've got no premiere date on that yet. Hopefully that will come very soon in early 2025. Next one, something we have got, the Section 31 series premiere has been announced, and the trailer is now available for this. So you can head over to Paramount's YouTube and you can check out the trailer for the new Star Trek Section 31. And I'm really looking forward to this series. And this series is going to premiere on the 24th of January of 2025. And Star Trek Section 31, again, if you've not been keeping up with the new stuff that's coming out from Trek, it's going to be set in what's known as the Lost Era within the Star Trek timeline. So it's going to be set in between the scenes of Star Trek Generations, where we had the Enterprise C, which was in 2293. And it's going to be set between then and 2364, which is the start of Star Trek The Next Generation. So it's a bridge in between the Enterprise C and the Enterprise D. The only couple of things that we do know, obviously, that one of the main characters is going to be Philippa Georgiou. Philippa Georgiou, obviously, running the clandestine network known as Section 31. She's going to be an agent within that, and we're going to be following her trials and tribulations. See what I did there? We're going to be following that as we head through her adventures within Section 31. We know that the Starfleet officers, they're going to be using the red outfits, like the ones that were in Generations that we saw Kirk and Scotty in them red uniforms. That's what we know, known as the Monster Maroon outfit, the ones that debuted back in Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan. But go check out the trailer, read up what you need to be. But we have got Trek coming very, very early in 2025. We have literally got about 5 weeks until that starts to premiere on Paramount Plus, which I'm quite excited for. Are you looking forward to this one, Silvers, at all?
I'd be interested to see what's coming. Yeah.
Candy?
And especially with I'm really kind of interested to see how they explore the Lost Era, since one of the characters in the movie is Casey Roll, who plays Rachel Garrett, who was the captain of the Enterprise C. So be kind of curious to see if it's obviously it kind of seems like might take place before she takes the chair. Like definitely takes the chair of the Enterprise C. But kind of seeing, I'm curious and excited to see how they kind of explore that timeline.
Yeah, me too. Puts, what's your thoughts?
Well, I am more worried about, their neck, with that uniform, the how much the turtleneck goes all the way up, that just looked like the most uncomfortable out of all uniforms across all Star Trek. Then they're bringing that one back. I don't know. I have thoughts there.
There's been a few uniform faux pas, hasn't they? Do you remember the first uniforms from TNG? Whenever you watch anything behind the scenes of them, which were like the tasteful one pieces, apparently they used to sweat so badly in them that they had to change them so often because they had sweat patches everywhere and they just looked horrendous. And apparently they were most horrible material to work in ever. But how thick the Monster Maroon outfits look, I totally agree.
Well, yeah.
With you. They look bad.
And from the first season of Star Trek Next Generation to the second, is where you get the Jean-Luc Picard like stand up and kind of pull down the Picard move, where he pulls down the front of his uniform to kind of make it all straight. Comes from the fact that they had switched from the one piece to a two piece in season 2, and he every time he stood up, he felt like he had to rearrange his shirt, so that kind of became like the Picard maneuver of
The real
pulling
Picard
his shirt.
maneuver. The real Picard maneuver. Okay, right. Okie dokie. Final one. Now, this one is totally geared, and I will let him explain briefly. This one is totally geared to a member of the panel. I'm going to read the headline for this, and this is what caught my attention. A New York woman who no longer drives has received thousands of dollars in traffic tickets because her license plate matched the famous tags from a Star Trek ship. Someone's going to like this one. So, a very, very poor lady known as Beda Corey, K-O-R-E-Y. She sold a car and she surrendered her license plates, number plates for all you over in the UK, back in 2020 after she started to lose her eyesight. Despite giving up the plates, she's been fined thousands and thousands of dollars over the last 4 years because loads of people from all over the country, in the US and up in Canada, are wearing vanity plates where their states allow it that match her number plate that was last registered to her, which is NCC 1701. And she's been getting thousands. It's totaling around $40,000 in fines because people have been caught speeding, running red lights. Even one of them was linked to drug trafficking with that license plate on. Silvers, what's your take on this?
That's hilarious because the reason that you bring that up is because I sent a picture of that license plate in our stream team chat or the Lube Live chat or something like that. What's hilarious is that's not my car.
Oh, is it not yours? I genuinely
No.
thought it was yours.
I can tell why you would, but that was the car that happened to be parked right next to me
Because
at my apartment.
Because that totally blows my mind. Because over here in the UK, it's law to have your front number plate / license plate and your rear license plate on. Front one has to be white, the rear one has to be yellow. That's it, and it has to be on both. Whereas you said that there's no requirement to have a front.
So
Is it a front one or a rear one that matches?
It depends on the state. So where I currently live in Kansas, Kansas is a state that only requires a rear license plate, which is issued by the state, has whatever design they choose, and then the front one can be whatever you want. Where I'm originally from, Wisconsin, that's a state that requires both front and back license plates.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it depends on the state.
totally different.
In
But
my
go on.
Yeah, in my state, they recently, about 5 years ago, switched Ohio from a two-plate state to a one-plate state. And the last time I just got a new car, and I was looking to get a vanity plate, and of course, I searched for NCC 1701, and it came up banned. So Ohio has banned that as being a choice. The reason being is because Ohio is currently a 3-letter and then 4-number standard plate if you just get a randomly issued one. And you cannot have a vanity plate that follows the same 3-letter 4-number designation in Ohio. So yeah, that's banned.
I just thought it was so apt. I just remember you must have posted that. It was less than a week ago, wasn't it? And then I saw this coming in. All I can imagine is Silver speeding at 1,000 miles an hour, knowing full well that he's sending this poor woman, this poor Beda Kuri. We are sending her thousands of tickets, and they're all Silver's fault. I was blaming you for a $40,000 worth of tickets.
Yeah, and that's hilarious because clearly not me.
No, not you at
And
all.
My
Silvis
my
would never
car
speed.
my car has a front license plate and a back license plate with the number that's issued to me by the state.
And I would expect nothing else from you. Captain Perfection himself, I would expect absolutely nothing different. But no, I thought that was quite an interesting story. I thought that was good, and I felt really sorry for her. Oh, everybody send a prayer, because apparently she cries herself to sleep over the fact that every time the postman comes, he's got a new ticket for her. 40,000 in
Jeez.
4 years. The poor woman. Poor woman. But I still thought it was quite Star Trek related. I liked it. Okay. And that was our Star Trek news wrap up.
It's time for the Star Trek news.
Well done. Next thing we are going to move on to our next section. We're going to be talking about the cultural differences between US and the UK as we move on to our next section, Freedom and Reason. Okay, so Freedom and Reason this week, we are going to be talking about something which might sound quite mundane, but it's very, very different across either side of the pond. We're going to be talking about healthcare. We're going to be talking about healthcare services and providers and things like that. And the main difference being that I'm going to sum this up really simply, that over in America, over in the States, you need to get health insurance to be able to get adequate care. Over in the UK, to clarify, we have a system called the National Health Service, abbreviated to the NHS, which is basically a free at point of use service for healthcare. Two very, very different, but let's break it down. Tell me a little bit about health insurance, Puts. Explain to me why you need it. Do you get any treatment for free? What's the basis of why you would need health insurance?
Unless you are basically on, like you earn lower than the poverty line, most places are going to charge you out the nose for anything that you have done, unless you have healthcare insurance. And there are so many different types of healthcare. There is healthcare for physicians insurance. There's vision and dental and prescription. Um, there are a lot of different types of insurance as well. It's not just one healthcare insurance.
And does it matter how much you earn? Is it percentage based at all? Or, for example, would somebody that earned $50,000 a year pay the same as somebody that earned $100,000 a year? Is it tied to income at all?
Yeah, it is not tied to income. Most all insurance that you get in the United States is through your employer. Depending on the employer and how good they are to their employees, the employer may pick up most or all of the cost of that. But nowadays, most employers only pick up a very small percentage, and you are responsible out of your paycheck to pay for your insurance through your employer. Depending on what you make, someone making relatively low wages, let's say lower than $40,000 a year, may end up paying 20 to 30% of their gross income um, before taxes are even taken out just for healthcare. And that does not include the co-pays, the co-insurance, the deductibles, all of these things that you have to
Wait.
pay on.
What's a two-pay?
What's a what?
Co-pay.
A copay. So a copay is when you go to the doctors or go somewhere to get health care, and you have to pay a certain amount at the time that you get that health care. And it's a reduced cost, but you still have to pay something, even though you've already paid for insurance. And then there's the deductible. And most insurance providers, they do not start paying anything, even though you're paying for the insurance through your employer. They do not pay a single dime until you reach a maximum deductible. And it can be somewhere between $2,000 and $10,000 and even more. So you could legitimately be paying $10,000 to $20,000 a year for insurance, plus another $10,000 to meet your deductible before the insurance actually ever pays for a single dime.
So a deductible to me sounds like what we would call over here an excess. An excess for us, like if we have a car insurance policy, we might have an excess of say £500, which means that the first £500 is not covered. It's only anything after that that would be covered. That's what you would determine a deductible.
That is what a deductible is, right? And our car insurance and home insurance and flood insurance and house insurance, all of those have some varying range of deductible. The higher your deductible is, the cheaper the
Cheaper.
policy
Yeah,
is.
yeah. So it sounds exactly the same as what we would call an excess over here. Now, just as a snapshot, Mini, as somebody who has the NHS like we do, what's your initial take on what Puts has just explained as a system?
That is scary as hell, if I'm honest.
I find that mind blowing as well. I find that mind
Here's
blowing.
another here's another interesting thing. It is based on year. So, for example, starting January 1, no matter what insurance you have now put in $0. So you're going to have to start over January 1 and keep pay up to your deductible. So if you have a big medical event and you've already met your deductible, then the rest of that year you scramble like crazy trying to get every other thing that you can possibly done medically before the end of the year, because you know that that's going to be 100% taken care of because you've met your deductible, you've met everything, and now it's all coming out of the insurance. But if you schedule that after January 1, it goes back to zero. For
Oh my
example,
God.
in the time I get home in 4 days and the new year, I will have 5 different doctor's appointments.
Oh my God. So it's not a deductible per illness, it's a deductible per annum.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's even worse than I thought it was going to be. That's even worse than I thought. And so a typical health insurance, I mean, you don't feel like you need to divulge it, but what do you think? Putz was saying 10 to 20,000. Would that be considered a good health insurance for a year? $20,000 in premiums?
It entirely depends upon your current like known state of health, uh, and also who the provider is too, because and also if it's just you, or if you're doing something like a family plan, because they also break it down into if it's a single person policy, or if it's a couples policy where it's like you and your spouse are on a policy together, or if you have a family plan where it's like you,
It's
your significant other, and then however many children you have. That's also where a deductible can get uh, higher as well. So if like in like the 10 or that $20,000 area, that can all vary depending upon the kind of policy and what kind of coverages you want to have in your health insurance. It's like myself, just being a single person policy holder, my deductible is $5,000, and my copays when I go to see the doctor are, like, depending upon which doctor it is, will range between $25 to $35 itself. Uh, I mean, and then another thing is if you need to go to the emergency room or an urgent care place, there's a different style of copay for that. So you could be spending $250 to go to the hospital for a copay. But it's where, like, unfortunately, like the current time at the end of December, it's already past what's called open enrollment, where everybody begins to shop for health insurance for the following year, where you can choose, kind of go out there and shop, see who has the best policies out there. If you're not taking insurance from your employer, to find out what's going to be the best coverage for you for the next coming year. And it can save you a lot of money if you're choosing not to use employer health insurance, or if you need to reevaluate what has gone on over the past year versus what you're maybe expecting or looking at in the coming year.
Do you get anything for free? I mean, do you get like
Uh,
two eye tests a year for free, or 2 dental hygiene visits free, or
and it's on your
Yes,
insurance policy.
most policies will give you a few preventative things. For example, every year you're allowed to go, or most insurance policies will let you go to your doctor and they can perform what they call a physical. And that is normally for free.
yeah, but
But
that's
there is,
not you, is it? Really, that's so that they have it documented that next
yeah,
January they can put the price right up.
yeah. I mean, it's pretty vicious in that there's not very much for free. And if you and going back to the employer, what's even really more insidious is that unless your employer is a huge company, I mean, we're talking thousands of people strong, right? Um, then their insurance, like the rates of insurance, can swing wildly from year to year based on the people in the pool that are being insured for that pool, whether or not they have major health issues or not. So basically, if you're working in a job where a lot of your coworkers are up there in age and are having lots of medical issues, that could actually increase your insurance dramatically, and
Through no fault of
whereas,
your own.
yeah, and through no fault of your own. Whereas if you were employed by another company that had a lot of younger people, more healthy people employed, your insurance would be relatively less. So that is actually another incentive of employers to hire young and get rid of the older, sicker people.
Jeez.
What about pregnancy? What about women and
Yeah,
giving birth?
great question.
Well, up until what was it, 2008, 2009, when the Affordable Health Care Act came into existence, pregnancy was considered a pre-existing condition, and employer insurance could deny you coverage because that's a pre-existing condition.
Oh my word. So how much do you think it would cost for somebody to have a baby now?
Anywhere between, I mean, without insurance, upwards of $100,000 could be and that's without any complications. Like if your child was born in 12 weeks early, had to be in the NICU for a month, whatever, you could be in the millions of dollars if you didn't have insurance.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Welcome to the world.
Oh my word, honestly, that genuinely blows my mind. I'm just going to quickly flip across the pond, okay, and I'm just going to let you know. So we have the National Health Service, the NHS. This started, 50, 60 years ago now, 75 years ago. So it was just after the war, wasn't it? When the National Health Service came into force. We pay for this through something called national insurance contributions. National insurance contributions are basically a tax. Now, that amount, to keep it simple, is around 8% of earnings. 8% of
You guys love
earnings.
your taxes, don't you?
We love a tax. We love a tax. Basically, so this is if you earn more, you pay more in national insurance because it's percentage based. You pay about 8% of gross salary into the National Health Service, but that doesn't into national insurance contributions. This doesn't just help fund the NHS. Taxes help fund the NHS, and the national insurance contributions that you pay, that 8%, also helps pay towards what we call a state pension, which is basically once you reach state pension age, which at the moment is 68 for anybody that's younger than 65. At 68, the government will start to pay you roughly £12,000 a year. And that's what you're paying into with national insurance. And you've got to meet a certain amount of years worth of national insurance contribution to be able to be eligible for a state pension once you reach state pension age. But the National Health Service, just to give you a general idea of what is covered by the fact that you're making these contributions of national insurance, And bearing in mind, anybody that's out of work, so anybody that's claiming, the easy way to describe it is called universal credit. So you're claiming like job seekers allowance. So you're out of work, but you're looking for a job. You're on incapacity benefit. So you're unable to work, for example, due to illness, injury, or whatever. Your national insurance contributions are considered paid. And that grants you free NHS care. And the NHS care covers things like GP appointments. So for you to go to your general practitioner, you would just call them a normal physician, where you would go to your doctors when you've got a bad cough or you've got an ear infection, just a general practitioner. It covers A&E services, so accident and emergency. I think you call them emergency rooms, I think, over there. Minor injuries, treatment in clinics, specialist consultations, when referred by your GP. It covers contraception. It covers other sexual health services such as STIs. It covers maternity services, mental health, and it can also cover certain dental services as well. And now, dentist is slightly different. So we pay now about £20 every 6 months for a checkup. And you have to pay that regardless, unless you are on one of those benefits that I mentioned earlier, or if you're a pensioner under a certain amount. If you're not claiming certain benefits, then you have to pay for that checkup. And then because you are a member of the NHS, you get a reduced cover for treatment. So if you needed like a root canal, which if you was to go to it privately might cost you £1,500, it would be 300 quid because you can have it done on the NHS. It will take longer. Obviously, the NHS waiting list times are a lot bigger, but if you wanted to get it done privately, it's probably saving you. It's probably 20% of the cost of what it would cost you to go private. And our NHS, I mean, we're proud of our NHS, aren't we? We're proud of what it does. It doesn't always function perfectly. Like, I would imagine that you guys get treat a lot quicker than what we would over here because you're paying for it, because obviously it's you you pay for what you get, don't you, sometimes? But that free service, I'd be really interested to see what Candy or Silvers, either one of you, what do you think of our system? Does that sound like something that you think would work over there? Do you think it sounds better than what you've got, Silvers, or do you think you're happy with what you've got?
Uh, Definitely not happy with what we have now, because it's very disproportionate. In our system, the insurance companies essentially can pay whatever they want, so they're not even required to pay what the clinic bills them. They might pay some minimum, and then if our deductible is met and the insurance doesn't pay the clinic, then they just have to write that off for taxes because they never got paid. Um, I think what you described for what you have is really good. I'd be curious to see how it would scale up because obviously the United States is much bigger,
Yeah,
both in land mass, population, and in economic power.
yeah,
Um, I The way that our economy works, I don't know if people would like it, or at least people at the top, just because they're the ones that make all the money off of the
yeah.
insurance.
Of course, and obviously,
And
them big companies will be paying the taxes, which are feeding your public services and things like that as well.
Well,
yeah,
we actually do have actually, I would say something that runs a little bit better and is more efficient than the NHS, and that is called Medicare. Medicare is a government-run insurance that you can get when you have either you've reached age 65 or you can qualify in some other ways. But it's essentially government-run healthcare, single provider government-run healthcare, and it's actually the most efficient healthcare system in the world. Um, if you look at private insurers in the United States, they spend anywhere between 10 and 30% of all of the gross money that comes in on overhead. That means salaries for printing
Employees.
paper,
Yeah.
or, the whole nine. Medicare is 2%. It only pays it uses 2% of the money that it brings in for the overhead. 98% of the money goes back out for healthcare. Um, so we do have a system. It's just limited to uh, retirees and other people that would qualify due to disability or other things.
The uninsurable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then there's also Medicaid, which is their kind of a supplement for people that live below the poverty line and children um, uh, and whatnot. But we do have single payer healthcare, universal healthcare, just not for everybody. How if we were to remove the provision that says you must be above 65 to get it, would it crumble? I don't know. There are experts on both sides that say, "Oh my gosh, that we would be in financial ruin," and then there are other experts that say, "No, no, no, everything would be great. We would all be contributing. We all contribute anyways to this." And so it's still an open, hot topic.
So
I
Medicare is
think I need,
basically the NHS, isn't it? But it's just so limit. It's just a lot more limited than what ours is.
Exactly.
Sorry, Minnie, go on.
I think I need to go back to what Put said there, because I think many of the listeners will do, which is you have a universal healthcare type thing that's only available for the very poor or the uninsurable. That's not universal, is it? That's
Yes, yes. I'm stretching the word universal by
yeah,
saying exactly.
yeah.
Mhm.
I think one of the biggest things that we have in the UK, which far outranks what's going over there, in my opinion, is our drug prices. We have a prescription cost, and it is capped at the same thing for everything that you get. So there is no difference between me going and picking up a prescription and Lube going and picking up a prescription in a different county. There's a different health service. Um, it's still capped at the same thing.
Yes.
Whereas I do believe in America, your drug prices can vary from street to street.
It can vary wildly.
It also depends on the insurance too, or what the insurance is going to cover. But yeah,
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
if we need a prescription, so if I needed a steroid cream for something, that would cost 15 quid ish. If I needed these tablets that were £1,000 per tablet, and I need one a day for the rest of my life, and I had to go get a supply of 14 every 2 weeks, it would cost me 15 quid. The prescription price is absolutely set. Which again is it's nice, it's good, but it's bloody expensive, which is why we spend such a huge amount of our country's GDP on the NHS.
Yeah, and like Silva said, it really depends on the insurer. It also depends on where you go. You could go to one pharmacy and with your insurance and get a prescription and it'll be free. And then you go to a different pharmacy and it's going to be $20. Or, it could be depending on insurance. I know my through my wife's insurance, she gets birth control for free. But in previous jobs where we've had, birth control was sometimes $200 a month, just depending.
Free. Yeah, that's free regardless. Free, full stop here.
I mean, our healthcare expenditure as a country, in 2022, they're the latest figures that I could pull up. We actually used, 2023, 10.9% of our country's GDP was spent on healthcare. So nearly 11% of every single pound that comes into the UK Treasury was spent out on healthcare for the free.
I mean, it's not perfect, is it? It's not perfect.
It's not
I mean,
perfect. It's not perfect in the
but
slightest.
I have never had a problem when I've needed it. When I have ended up in A&E or in hospital, or I've had to call out an ambulance for someone, I didn't have to worry for the fear of bailiffs turning up. You know,
No. I bet there is people in the US that die. And this is going to sound quite morbid. I bet there is people that die because they didn't have the right insurance, and the country
Not
has not necessarily let them die, but they've done it because they couldn't afford the right care.
I would imagine that it's probably close to 100,000 people die in the United States each year because of health insurance issues, whether it's they can't afford the medicine, whether it is, oh, I needed to go to the emergency room, but I know that the ambulance, if an ambulance comes and picks me up, it's going to be $1,000, so I'm going to jump in an Uber or a
that's not even close. Ambulances cost about $10,000 per mile.
Yeah. I
Oh,
throwing out a
Jesus. Jesus Christ, absolutely insane, absolutely insane. I think we could sit and run this topic for hours and hours and hours. I think the differences between the two are absolutely extortionate. I think they're absolutely insane. But I think people will find that really interesting. People that have never understood quite what health insurance is, I think you give a really good account of that. I think it's nice for you to know what happens over here. I think that's good. Okay, we are now going to move on to our Star Trek topic, and this is a really good one. I'm really looking forward to talking about this. So we are going to be talking about one of the strangest endings to a Star Trek series. And I'm using the word strange because I know some people liked it, but I think the majority of the people hated it. We're going to be talking about Star Trek Enterprise. So Archer, Tucker, to Paul. We're going to be talking about the end of that series. It was heralded as the worst ending to a Star Trek series. And just to add a little bit of context, the reason that it ended after 5 seasons was because ratings were so low that the series was cut. And the final episode was basically... So,
Yeah,
go on.
I got to correct
4
it there.
seasons.
4 seasons.
4 seasons.
And it was not canceled because of low ratings. They actually had some of their best ratings in the last season. It was canceled because of the financial extendigy of UPN, a fledgling network that was basically bankrupt. And they were cutting things. It was their top rated show, and they had to cut it.
See, I was under the impressions that it was rated badly. But I mean, I will herald to your...
Someone didn't do the research.
No, I'll play it again for good measure. That's my correction charm. Whenever syllabus gets split, like, obviously I always have to throw that in there. I suppose I could use it for puts a few times as well. But that season ended, and quite frankly, I think it was awful the way that it ended. I absolutely hated it. I think it had legs, and I think it was just starting to come into its own. And we're going to be talking about alternative endings, what we would like to have seen towards the end. And I think we will probably be unanimous as Star Trek fans to say that we would like to have seen it go on for the full Trek. I think we'd like to have seen it go on for the full 7 seasons, give it a chance to come in. Because even if you look at the first couple of seasons of other shows, Deep Space Nine, TNG, Voyager, the first couple of seasons were all a bit ropey. They were, weren't they? I mean, there was no season 1 of TNG. It's a pretty tough watch. There's a couple of good episodes. There's some good moments. But it's a pretty tough watch. It's not until it starts to come into its own. And the same with DS9, Voyager, all of them. They come into their own as you progress through the seasons. And I don't think Enterprise was given as much of a rap as it should have done to really, really perform. Now, we have got our resident Enterprise aficionado, expert, loves it, favourite season. We've got Candy. Candy, how gutted were you when it ended the way that it did? And how would you like to have seen it change, the ending?
The series several times as I've grown up. Of course, when I watched it the first time, I was like seeing a mirror universe type episode of like, or actually, I take that back. Looking at it with wide eyes and still loving the Next Generation at the time. Like I love that William Riker was in there, but going back and watching it again with more of an adult's perspective, I'm like, this ending is absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you definitely tell that that like somebody got a memo and had to pull the rug out from everybody and be like, all right, you gotta, like, you guys gotta finish up by 5 o'clock. And it's like, what? I thought we still had like 4 more weeks to work on this project. Like, no, it's due today. And be like, oh crap.
I think they brought Deanna and Will back into it literally as a bit of an appeasement tactic. Oh, we love them characters. They're fantastic characters. They'll appease the audience a little bit. But quite frankly, I think it just irritated people because what on earth right did they have to be in that episode?
Absolutely no right.
No, it's absolute madness. But what would you like to have seen at the end?
I mean, as a continuation and into an end, I would have loved to see the evolution of the NX-01, kind of seeing it take like receive the refits that like the Columbia got towards the end of the series, like continuation, like where like, the NX-01 ended up receiving or what in some places call it the Picard refit, or more of a evolution, kind of steering towards the Constitution class type design. I would have honestly loved to see a further hashing of relationships between the Romulans and the Klingons and and what would end up becoming the Federation at that point later on. Like seeing how did the Federation or Starfleet get on bad terms with the Romulans? Like how did the relationship continue to form with the Klingons? And like see like when the peace treaty or when the treaty was signed, would that banned the Federation from retaining cloaking devices? Like
Yeah.
what had to happen to get to that point?
The Treaty of Alderaan. Or is Alderaan
Yep.
thingy, is that Star Trek? Is that
Yeah,
Star Wars?
Star Wars.
What was it called? Algernon.
Alderaan.
Oh God, somewhere in there. But no, I totally agree. I think that would have been good. I mean, the whole point of Enterprise was to act as a bridge. I mean, the whole point of doing a prequel is to build up to where we know, and where we knew at the time was TOS. That was the whole point of it. The whole point of it was to bridge the gap between, right, we've got a warp engine, it now works. Let's work our way towards TOS. That was the whole point of the series. And it didn't do that. It fell far short of doing that. I totally agree. But there would have been fantastic points to uncover and to go through and look at. I agree. What about yourself, Putz? What do you think? What would you like to have seen at the end of Enterprise that we didn't see? Were you disappointed with the way it ended? What are your general thoughts?
Well, I think that they did an amazing job for the amount of time that they had. For those of you who do not know, they had exactly 19 days from the time that they were told that the show was going to be canceled to when they had to wrap. And they still had to film 4 episodes. So the last 4 episodes ever are them. Those are the 4 episodes that everybody in the cast and everybody knew that they were going to be canceled. The reason why you had you had Jonathan Frakes and you had Skiritz come back is because those were really the only two that were available. They had 19 days, and Frakes had just directed an episode of Enterprise like weeks before that, and they brought him in to do that. They were scrambling like crazy trying to figure out how to close this up. Um, what I would have liked to see is that the episode with Riker and Deanna Troi going back and using the holodeck and like playing the chef and everything and learning, that would have actually been a really great springboard into the next season. They could have fast forwarded the whole show to where now we have a federation, and then go from there and do another 3 seasons of exploring how the federation was building, and especially with the Klingons. Like, why do we hate the Klingons? Why are the Klingons? Because we learn in TOS that the Klingons are the most hated, and we are just at war. And how did that come about? Right? Like that to me was a big missed opportunity. But I actually did like the last episode. I didn't like it as a last episode. Like, it sucked as a season finale or a finale. But as an episode, just, if you take it out of that context, it was actually a really good episode.
Just not where it's sat. Not where it's sat as a finale. That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
It had potential. No, I totally agree. What would you have liked to have seen more of then? How would you have liked to have developed it?
I definitely would want to have seen, exploring into and getting and meeting more Klingons, establishing that border between Federation and Klingon space and whatnot. And I'm personally much more, I would have wanted to see much more Klingon than maybe Romulan, but either of the two, just kind of, how did the red, green, and blue on the map become the red, green, and blue on the map, and the borders and all of that, right? Like, that would have been to figure out.
I totally agree. And like I said, I'm going to throw my 2 penneth in at the end of everybody's part. And I totally agree with you. I think this was the opportunity to lay the foundations into where Star Trek started in the 60s. This was the way to start it and to explain everything that needed to be explained as to the origins of things, and everything needed to just be an origin story. How did we become friendly with the Klingons? How did we become enemies with the Klingons? How did we become the Romulans were the worst thing on earth when we got into TNG and things. It was just such an opportunity to have those founding stories that we just didn't have. Minnie, what about yourself? What did you think of the final episode? How did you feel it went? Do you think that you would have changed that? Obviously, we're disappointed it was the final episode, but what would you like to have seen different?
Well, first of all, I think for me, Enterprise was very hard to get into because the opening sequence was so different to every. I know you love it, and I know you sing it.
Best
I
opening
found it
of all
very
time.
hard to get past.
You
Yeah,
need to
okay.
have some more faith of the
Um,
heart. You need to have some more faith of
yeah,
the heart.
but it's so out of the whole Star Trek genre, isn't it? It hasn't got the bells and the
Yeah.
the whistle. It's so different, and I really struggled with that. Even though I had Sam out of Quantum Leap, I desperately wanted to enjoy it. I desperately wanted to watch it. And a bit like Candy, I came to it again second time round, a little bit older, and watched it, and I loved it because I could fast forward the intro on Netflix. You know, dead simple.
Other
And
streaming
I
services are
found
available.
other, of course, obviously, yes. I found the end confusing because I didn't know the information that Putz had just given us.
Mm.
So I found it a little bit confusing. If I was going to end it, if I was going to end this closed circuit, I would have killed them all because that's how dangerous going out in space is.
Put a proper
And I
full
know that
stop at
might
the end.
sound, yeah, it might sound really morbid, but you know, we saw them do the magnetic hull and you know, invent red alert and what should we call it, and all these wonderful things, and we really bonded with them, and we didn't bond with them at the end. It was just like, oh, well, that was a bit odd.
Yeah, I'm not sure we had time to bond fully with the characters. I don't think 4 seasons is enough to actually get sufficient character development in there to be able to really bond with them like we do with the likes of Deanna and Will and Jean-Luc
But
Picard.
we definitely bonded with them enough, didn't we, that if they'd been taken out by a Klingon ship, and that was the end, we would have had this sense of, I wonder if that's why we went to war with the Klingons. I wonder, do you know?
Yeah, but I just didn't want it to be left in wonder. I didn't want it to be left in wonder. I wanted Enterprise to be a question to so many answers to the foundations of Star Trek. That's what I wanted it to be, and I feel it fell a bit short.
They could go back to it, couldn't they, in this new academy? They could go back and use moments from it, teaching moments, a bit like how Will and Diana were using it as teaching moments, as learning moments, as a history. So,
and anything set up as anything that's set up as a prequel rather than a follow-on has got the opportunity to fill in those gaps. I agree, but I think that would have been a really good thing to do. What about you, Silvers? I know this wasn't your favourite, but what do you think of the episode and anything you'd like to have seen extended or changed?
Yeah, I definitely was not a fan of the episode. Thought it was a horrible way to end a series, like you said, that was just getting on its feet. Going forward, if they hadn't run that episode and they didn't cancel, I would have loved to see more of the same, essentially. So the last 2 seasons, they had conflict with the Xindi.
Yep.
And before that, they were just doing exploring, meeting new species, discovering new planets. And that's part of what I loved about Enterprise is that we had all of these firsts in Star Trek. It was the first time meeting this species. It was the Xindi conflict was the first major conflict with another species.
It was.
And
did we ever?
I loved seeing those interactions with the crew, the Enterprise NX-01, and the other species, and I loved seeing the growth of technology, which I've talked about here before.
Yeah.
With the NX-01 had grappling hooks instead of a tractor beam.
Yeah.
Like that stuff. That kind of stuff.
They were the first people to try transporting a human being rather than just a cargo transporter.
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Yeah, no, it wasn't good. And going back to what you said, you just mentioned a really good point, the Zindi. I thought the Zindi was such an excellently written species. Do you know what I mean? With the different
It was
areas,
so good.
the insectoids, the aquatics, the reptilians. Do you know what I mean? What was the one that was dead? What was the one that they want any more
The
of?
avians.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So there was all the different facets of the Zindi, and I don't feel like, obviously we never knew about the Zindi, we didn't know anything about them, but we also don't know where they went now, do we? We don't know what happened to the Zindi race.
Because they're not in any other series.
That's my point. So I just think that had so much more development in it, and that could have expanded. That could have been another couple of seasons, couldn't it? That could have been like Voyager fighting the Borg in the Delta Quadrant. It could have been DS9 doing the Dominion. That was 2, 3, 4 seasons worth of arc, just building on that and building the temporal Cold War and all that sort of thing. I think that had so much more potential to be able to be expanded.
Yeah, the thing on the Zindi, what really I don't understand is that they had to be relatively close to Earth, right? We were only traveling at warp 5,
Uh-huh.
and we were able to get there, 5 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and it, where are they now, right? Like,
Yeah.
what happened to the space? Like obviously it's inside the Federation,
Yeah.
right? Like, where are they? What happened?
And
That's a big open question.
And because they didn't appear in any other series moving forward, they weren't even mentioned, the Enterprise series had to start and basically end it, because they have to have been either extinct or destroyed, or do you know what I mean? They had to have been completely obliterated either during Enterprise or between the period of the end of Enterprise to the start of TOS, because there's no other mention of that in canon at all of the Zindi. So, and for somebody like you say, make a really good point of them being so close and then us never hearing from them again. It just leaves so much open to speculation. Just again proves another huge part of why Enterprise finished too early. Okay, I think we've wrapped that up. I think that's really good. Anybody got any final comments on Enterprise? Anything that anybody else wants to add to things that they would like to have seen at the end, or anything like that before we move on?
I think the very perfect ending would have the last shot, no matter what season it was, the last shot should have been the Enterprise A leaving space dock.
Yes.
That should have been the last scene.
Absolute 100% tie over, finishing one and starting the oldest series, the one that we know about, and really, really bridging that gap. I totally agree. Thank you so much, everybody. And I just want to stress to you all that we are available on all major podcast platforms. Please, please, please go and follow this podcast wherever you're listening to your podcast, wherever you're listening to us. Thank you so much for listening. Please leave us a 6 out of 5 star review on whatever podcast platforms that you listen to. Please join our Discord. Obviously, come and join the chat. Get into the Brits and Yanks Talk Trek channel so that you can suggest topics that you would like us to discuss. Now, if you are interested in Star Trek games, we do play Star Trek Fleet Command as a community, and you can find all of our content for that. If you search It's Lube and Mini Mabel on Twitch and on YouTube as well, you can find our content for that game if you're interested in playing a game. Check out the website, itslube.com, itslewb.com. You can go pick yourself up a Brits and Yanks Talk Trek t-shirt, a mug, anything like that, expertly curated by the one and only Candy, who you've heard from this evening. And consider becoming a member. It starts at just $3 a month at itslube.com, and you are going to get access to exclusive behind-the-scenes clips of the show from before filming, from before we actually get on the air. You can listen to us, just have general banter in the background, and obviously you're supporting the ongoing creation and improvement of the podcast. I want to thank all of our members right now. We do that at the end of every single podcast. So I want to say a huge thank you to Minnie, Jenny Mac, Deja, Dr. Iron Chef, Virtual Army, Zek, Texas Guy, Killer Angel, Grumpy, Mata Hadji, and Les. Thank you so, so much for being members of the channel. I will thank the panel all by name. Thank you so, so much, Minnie. Thank you, Putz. Thank you, Silvers. Thank you, Candy, for being here on episode 17. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you from me. My name's Lube. And remember that absolutely everything is better with Lube. Take care, guys. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.
Bye.